What is going on, fellas? Jimmy, I just saw last week, but you know, Sapan and RaRa, it's been a while, fellas. And RaRa, I love that background image you got there, brother.
Absolutely. Hey, you guys brought me on for I think this is the first time or the second time or the third time. So I had to make sure it was rightfully done for this live stream.
Well done. Oh, and he ducks out just so we can see the full beauty of what's going on there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
what is your R1S's name now? Because I think it used to be. You just recently
Oh,
changed it, didn't you?
I did. It's called Black Noir now.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
Spelled BLVK.
That's right.
Nice, nice.
Nice.
Well, so
She's in good.
I
She's in
wanted to
great
get
shape. About the 1 year anniversary coming up.
Awesome.
outstanding. Yeah. I'm a year and a half in now, but we all four of us have something in common, and it's that we've all seen the Rivian R2. And so I wanted to get everybody together to talk about it, compare notes, exchange thoughts. So I saw it last week in Austin, but Sapan and Rara, you guys actually flew out for the big event to Laguna for the world premiere, I guess, if you will. And then Jimmy, where did you see the R2?
We just saw it yesterday at the Electrify Expo in Orlando. It was there for the day.
Excellent.
Yesterday, yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, I want to hear a little bit more about the reveal, and maybe even we can touch on R3 and R3X a little bit. But, you know, Rah Rah Sapan, guys, yeah, tell us about going to Laguna for the reveal.
Sapan,
Shot.
you kick it off. Oh, you want me to go
Okay.
first? All right.
Yeah,
No,
go
you go
first.
first. You want me to go first? All right. I mean, we're so excited about it. So, I flew in on Wednesday morning. I left out of the DC market, got there, and it was doom and gloom. It was raining in California, in Laguna Beach. And I said to myself, it must be my fault because I'm bringing the East Coast weather to the West Coast. But got there around noon, 1 o'clock. I made it to the hotel that Rivian had set up for us, and I took the time to walk down to the theater. And the theater, first of all, is amazing. They didn't let us inside the theater on that Wednesday, but I had the opportunity to see them setting up. I was actually in the actual the Rivian store, which is adjacent to the theater. And so saw a lot of the folks that have been taking care of us. Shout outs to a whole bunch of folks like Jennifer and Tony and Brian and everyone. So they were putting things together. But yeah, the next day, that Thursday morning, it was like the sky opened up. It was sunny. It was beautiful. You couldn't ask for a more perfect day for the reveal. And because we're on East Coast time, I was up at like 5 a.m. So I was, twiddling my fingers because to me it's 8 a.m. And so, we went to, I skipped, we went back, we went dinner, we caught up with a whole bunch of the Rivian club folks that we all know, Emerald City, Kansas City. So we all had a huge, amazing time, at a restaurant and drank a little bit the night before. So we were all up essentially. And we got down there, man. It was like they had two lines set up and the opposite side was like all press. But I can tell you, it was more energetic on our side. I mean, literally, it was just like all of us as natural born influencers, just the love of Rivian and the way they took care of us is it's just impeccable, right? They saw us there, they gave us our credentials, they placed us front and center. I know Sapano will talk about his experience, but they had me placed right there in front of RJ and his teleprompter, right there, basically on the stage. You couldn't see me, but it was on the stage, and they just wanted natural reactions, and they wanted people that he may have been familiar with visually, because I can imagine how difficult that is behind the scenes, going off a teleprompter. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the stuff he was saying was just organic. It wasn't line by line. Like he literally knew the topics were there, but he broke down like, everything that you heard was, I would say, by the fly, but it just comes second nature. So,
That's
when
awesome.
I saw the R2 come out and I was in the front row, it was pandemonium. And when I saw it coming out, I was like, oh my gosh. And then honestly, and we can get into the impressions later. I thought it was bigger than what I anticipated R2 was going to be when I saw it. And then, but it came in front and center. He broke it down. I'm guilty to say that, people like Sapan and myself, we had the link and we reserved like slightly before 10. So I think Sapan, you have the record. I think he was at 9:55. My reservation confirmation came in at 9:56. So depending on playing on seconds, but yeah, it was a good experience. They took care of us. They gave us the opportunity. And obviously the R3, we'll talk about that, but that was a shocker. They explained how they hid that from Rivian employees, so I can share that when the time was appropriate in this call. So I thought that was pretty amazing. But all in all, man, I think they really laid out the roadmap to what we can expect. And as an investor as well, I think it was well needed, right? Because I think that we really want to understand. You hear all the naysayers and all this stuff about, because it makes news. It's clickable, right? To say, oh, they're in trouble and they're laying these people off and all of these things. But to see that, if there was a whole new set of energy that was in that room, not only from us as customers and representatives from Rivian clubs, but from the actual influencers, the press. They were so energetic about it. There wasn't a quiet person in the house, and it was just an amazing experience. And I thank Rivian for allowing myself and Sapan and the rest of us to be able to take part in it. So I'll pass this over to Sapan now. Hope I didn't take too much info.
Oh
No,
no,
I
it
mean,
was good.
it was great. Yeah, and exactly right. Just repeating what what Rashad said. The energy was wild. There was not a person in that whole audience and auditorium without a grin on their face. Right, everyone was just smiling ear to ear. And then as he kept on bringing out more and more, vehicles, right? R2 was good. It's like, but wait, there's more. Very very much Billy Mays. But wait, one more, right? Or Steve Jobs. It was awesome. Big shout out to Rivian for allowing folks from the community to join the event and be part of such a historic moment in their company, because this is going to define their placeholder in the electric vehicle market space in the future, right? So the R2 is leading up to be a great product. It's perfectly segmented for those who want a entry level electric vehicle, but who don't want to spend a lot of money or who don't need third row capability. So it was a blast. I'm glad you two got to see it. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are as well. For me, the R2 size wise was, as Rashad said, right? He thought it looked a little bigger in person, but I think the reason why is because of the shape, right? That shape is a boxy shape, so it makes use of all that space. So it's going to look, a little bit bigger than like a Model Y, which is it's not too much longer than. I think it's more or less the same proportions lengthwise as a Model Y. It's just that it's a boxy shape, so it's going to get use of all that extra space from that shape. So, what about you guys? What do you think of it?
So I think it's great, man. Like obviously for those that don't know, we have a Model Y. I think RJ said it's actually like 1.4 inches shorter or 1.5 inches shorter than a Y.
Yep.
A little bit taller, obviously, because of the well, I don't want to say obviously. It is a little bit taller.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head now. But like you said, Sapan, the boxy R1S esque shape lends to giving it a bigger feel, and the fact that it's got 9.8 inches of ground clearance
Yeah.
also makes it look bigger than it is.
Yeah.
But I think from an adventure for everyone, or whatever that tagline is going to end up looking like, I think for those that don't need, like you said, Sapan, for those that don't need a third row, like for us, for instance, like we reserved as early as one could that may or may not have had the link, and it will definitely be replacing the Y. Like There's no doubt. Everything about it was a great. When I say this, I don't mean it this way, but these are the words I'm going to use. It was a great downgrade in order to get it to the price point that it needed to be while still looking premium. Between the materials, the design, the layout of the lock and unlock buttons on the door, man, can those things not make any more sense than where they are? And then the door open button, like right there on the leading edge of the, the inboard edge of the door handle. Yeah, I think if, and while we're talking about it, I think my one first impression that I didn't like is the fact that those wheels, at least on this one, and I know there will be more wheel options. Well, I don't know. I will assume there will be more wheel options. Is that off-road wheel is a 21, and I want nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do. I mean, it's a great wheel. I love the design. I love that it does sit inside the wheel more, so road rash, wheel rash will not be a thing. Anybody can road rash a wheel if they really try hard enough, but you'll have to try really hard to road rash this wheel. But I don't want a 21 because it's just it's another one of those oddball sizes.
Oh, gosh,
so
Rivian.
That's my impression.
Forget the number 21 exists as it relates to wheels, man. Let it go.
Yeah.
But yes, Jimmy, you hit one. I'm gonna throw in a couple of more, but actually, it looked like, and granted, it was a prototype vehicle, so these things weren't working yet. But it looked like it may have been capacitive for front access and also for the rear gate. So looked kind of cool. Looked like the stuff was there, but right now the front only opens from the center console, which is fine. And I will say that kind of overall general impression, I absolutely loved it. And I think that it is an excellent mass market vehicle. The size and kind of overall feel, it felt like a Rivian Jeep Grand Cherokee to me. And that was my daily driver before I thought the R1S was coming sooner than it actually ended up coming. But and I loved that Grand Cherokee. I mean, the size for whipping around town, being able to get easily in and out of parking spots. I mean, it's just enough smaller than the R1S that I think a lot of people are going to feel more comfortable in it. And and the other thing that really struck me about it was actually the color. Because from a distance, it looks white, but then like it was actually really, really, really super light gray. Like lighter than Porsche's chalk gray, which I love that color. So I thought it was super interesting.
Yeah, I think it does a really good job with like some of the other colors do it does a really good job, like some of the Rivian colors do, of absorbing whatever natural skylight is. Because we had overcast skies for a little bit yesterday morning when we first got there. And it definitely had that like chalky, like barely like bone gray color look to it. And then once the clouds went away and we got some sunlight, it definitely showed more flat, like glossy, but like a flat white look to it, just because of the more natural light instead of like the gray reflecting off of it.
And the cool thing, we saw it in manufactured light, right? We only saw it inside. And so when it first came out, my opinion was more white, right? until we were able to actually walk up on it and recognize that it was not white. And I thought, and to your point, Jimmy, I think they do a good job with these color dynamics because they did say there's going to be a brand new, subset of colors, and I'm very interested in seeing that. Even I don't think you guys got a chance to see the R3, but the Laguna, they calling it the Laguna Blue right now. Nice. But that Laguna Blue was nice because it's not your Rivian blue. It's kind of got more of a greenish hue to it, like a turquoise, but it plays dark. And again, we saw that in manufactured light also. So that was something that I think that the colors that we're going to anticipate in this round is going to be really breathtaking. Really breathtaking.
I'm going to see if this will come through.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean they're playing with the pearlescence in the paint, right? The way everything is being reflected, it's going to look different in different lights, and it looks beautiful. I think they've, from a color dynamic wise, they've done such a good job on almost every color, if not every color, right? So
and they listened. They listened to us. You don't see that chrome strip anywhere along the headline of that truck. And they said that they listened, and I was like, yeah, because all we're going to do is Chrome delete the thing. So I think they did a good job out the gate with that.
Yeah, I mean, just I want to go back to the downgrade part because I don't want to like undersell this vehicle because there are a ton of premium things in this, but it's got a power open frunk. When you need it most because your hands might be full, so you can open it up and then put your stuff in without having to put your stuff down, but then obviously.
You think that'll stay, Jimmy? You think that's just a prototype? You think that'll stay, or do you think they'll power it down? Just out of curiosity.
I think that'll stay. I don't think maybe the rear hatch. I think the rear hatch is powered as still, but I think there's going to be certain little give and takes that we will see stay in the R2. Because they've got every little thing that you add isn't, it might be a couple dollars here, but, or a couple dollars for them, but it's still more things that they don't need in order to keep that thing 45 grand,
Jimmy, did you and Skyler get a chance to actually touch, feel? No, it was only visual. Okay.
Oh, yes. Only visual. Yep. Yeah. So, even knowing who I knew there, they still made a point. Like I had my mom was there, and she was very excited to see the R2 yesterday, and even I had to be like, Mom, get your hand off that truck. You're going to get me in trouble, Mom.
What's wrong with that, Jimmy? What's wrong?
I know. Yeah, she kept leaning over, and I'm like, Mom, back up, Mom.
So guys, what do you think of a traditional type suspension? So coil springs and regular shocks, especially you, Sapan.
All for it. I love it. Yep. It's going to make everything so much simpler. It's going to, alleviate people's concerns with, air suspension. I'm wondering if I actually no, I think we did confirm it has standard sway bars and end links and things like that, right? So no hydraulic roll control, which again, awesome, right? It makes manufacturing simpler. It makes assembly, that much more simpler. It makes servicing simpler. It makes everything more, simplified and also cheaper. So it just makes sense all across the board.
I totally agree. One thing that I think would be cool to see as an option, whether it's from the factory or even, it'd be tough to do it aftermarket because most successful implementations of this are OEM implementations directly from the manufacturer, but magnetic shocks to where you can still have some suspension variability, but it's not as complex as the suspension in the R1s. The other thing that that I think this is going to lead to, and then Jimmy, I'll let you roll with it after this. But being a traditional suspension, people are going to lift and or lower these things. Yeah.
Yeah, so to your point on magnetic shocks, in one of the screenshots that somebody took, or one of the pictures somebody took, there is an image of some sort of ride stiffness adjustment.
Oh, okay. Cool. I didn't see that.
So, yeah.
So maybe, yeah.
So there's a possibility. Again, is it on that? Is it on that R2 in particular? Maybe, maybe not. We don't.
Yeah.
I don't think any four of us know that. But that could be something that they're looking at doing because it's in the software.
Yep. Yep.
Because obviously we could talk about accessories too that we all saw in that $8,000 to $10,000 tent that I would love to have, but will never be in my garage because that thing is ridiculous. But yeah, so I think, but to your point, Skyler, like lifting it or lowering it for those that want to make it slightly more aggressive stanced than it actually, honestly, I love the proportions. Like the proportions of it as it sits right now, even though I hate those 20, I like the design of those 21s. I just hate the size of those 21s.
Yes.
But I think the proportions of it are great. I mean, I think they're 32s. If you convert them to a size that makes sense for most people.
Well, I will say this, Jimmy, going to what you and Skylar said. Before getting this Rivian, I came out of a Ford Explorer, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then before that, I had a Navigator. And so the air suspension I had on the Navigator, and there was always fear that it was going to go out. Those bags were going to go out. And I can tell you, majority of the people that are out there that are driving cars now do not have air suspension. And so the Ford felt like but I will say it felt like an SUV for sure. It drove like one. I had a Sport, so it was tuned, but it was I was one of my favorite vehicles to own. So to understand that in a standard suspension, I think you're not going to miss anything. I think that they're going to tune it in a way where it's going to be optimal, and folks are really going to be able to drive that like they would drive the mass majority of vehicles, currently ICE vehicles in that class. So that's my thought on that.
100%. I totally agree.
But I will tell you what's interesting, which is you saw some of the stuff we posted out there about the positioning of the charge port, right? The right lower rear well, behind the wheel well. I get what was told to me there is that the placement there was to future proof as we prepare for cities, robust urban environments where we're having, what is it called? Sidewalk chargers or parallel chargers and stuff like that.
Side.
Street side. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was interesting. But in the short term, I think that may be of a challenge, right? Because it's one thing to be on the right and up high. You're now forced to having to be a little bit more justified. And I'm thinking about Tesla chargers, right? And hopefully that the length of it is long enough to come down and not stress that cable to connect it without having to jeopardize your positioning of the vehicle. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play. And then if you are off-roading with all the stuff, the dirt, mud flapping coming off of the wheel, what type of effect is that going to have to that actual port? So those were questions I really had immediately. And, but it's clean. You almost didn't know where it was until someone pointed it out. Now, we couldn't touch it. But when someone lifted it up for us, I saw the hinge. I saw how it went up. It looks terrific and seamless, just like the R1S. It's seamless. But I am challenged with where that is located presently.
Yeah, I mean, I think we may or may not have water come over our hood multiple times in some of the off-roading adventures that we've done and or splashing the windshield. And we've never had issues with our charge port being where it is, and that's like in prime submarine zone. So I wouldn't be so worried about location for off-roading as much as I would be. Apologize, I'm closing some windows because I thought I put my computer in do not disturb. Anyways, I'm gonna actually kick this to Skyler because I don't want to steal the point that you're about to make for charging your R2 where it is now.
Right. Well, so I will start off by saying that I'm fine with the right side, but if you're going to put it on the right side, put it at the front because people like to pull in forward to their garage, two chargers, and it's from my perspective, it is a customer experience thing that is a big enough deal that I feel like it's worth some additional expense, even if that does end up on the customer side, because you will use that charge port on a very regular basis, whether it's daily, weekly, whatever the case may be. So I know that RJ said that it's put at the back because the base model is going to be a rear wheel drive configuration. So the high voltage connections, the high voltage architecture is already back there. And I understand that. But at the same time, I think it's worth the added cost to put it in a better spot. And I have very candidly told every Rivian person that I've talked to that I thought would listen about that. And actually, they've been hearing it a lot, and I feel like something might change there. So we'll see.
I'm trying to remember. I know the stance is that the one that we saw is 9.8, right? Ground clearance. I'm trying to remember if currently where it is now, and I'm average height, I'm 5'10, right? I believe you have to slightly bend down to insert at the current location. And I wonder how much of a problem that's going to be for folks to having to bend down slightly to hit it versus the R3. It's exactly where it needs to be, right? It may be passenger side, but it's passenger side right there at height, arms, chest level, right there behind that pillar. So just curious. I know you're rather tall, Skyler. Do you recall standing or seeing it and seeing that you need to maybe have to bend down to plug in the NACs?
I didn't even think about that, but that is an excellent point because that would be kind of annoying because, well, and granted, hopefully NAX is much easier to plug in than CCS1, but every once in a while you got to kind of get down there on the CCS1 and make sure that that big bulky connector is going in straight, you know? Right. So that would be worse if it was even lower.
And then plus the flip. Yeah. Plus the flap up, you have to come underneath it. So
yeah. And then so the whole right side, right? So also keep in mind, I think the reason why they chose that side, not only for the savings and the wiring architecture and rear wheel drive, but their new market, right? Europe. So in Europe, all the European cars on the right side. So I'm sure that played heavily into their decision because after they launch it here, it's going to be Europe's first Rivian, and that'll be quite interesting to see with all the European cars that are on the passenger side as well. So
yeah, I mean, and
which
to that point
is the driver's side in a lot of places in Europe. It's just passenger to us,
depending,
right?
Well,
everywhere
Great Britain,
but
right?
Everywhere but Great Britain.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to that point, Sapan, I mean, Nikki and I were just over in Paris. I say just back over June. We were in Paris and in London, and there is a lot of curbside, like parallel parking, charging over there. So I mean, from looking at what they've got going on, 100%, that's where it should be because again, like you even bring your own cable, like you don't, and then you plug it into the unit, plug it into your vehicle, and then take it when you leave.
Exactly.
But I think the future proofing part here, just to me, it doesn't make sense because we're not even there yet. Like we're not even. I know of like one charger that I can think of in all of Florida that I've been to that is truly like a parallel parking type charging experience. And that's in Yulee, Florida, about 25 miles north of us, right off of I-95. And all 4 or 6 of them are parallel parking spots.
You know what's interesting, Jimmy?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jimmy.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
guys, that in that instance, and only in that instance, makes sense to me because it even is on, if you park there correctly, it's on the exit to A1A, so all of those spots are technically on the right, for you to park there. Go ahead, RaRa.
No, I was going to point out, my EQS, the Mercedes EQS is on the passenger side as well, passenger rear. And you pointed out an excellent point. When I went to the EA, I always travel back and forth to Michigan, and I stopped at the EA charger on the Ohio Turnpike, and that is your stack, 2 front and behind, and there's a row of 4, and for that I had to literally go to the opposite side of the EA charger back in. So basically the face of the charger is opposite to me, right? And I had to bring the cable behind it, if you will, right, to plug in. Whereas if I had my Rivian, I could just pull in straight on the side where the actual meter is. And the reason why I bring this up is because there were a couple of owners, different, I think there was a Audi owner, but new to electrification, right? And so she pulled up normally to that charger and attempted to use the other arm of my charger, right? Because she didn't realize my arm was wrapped around the back. Now, luckily I was there and I told her it's not going to work. It's not a dual, a split charge unit, and you're not going to be able to use that. But she was literally damn near plugged in. And I had to tell her, no, that it's just there for placement of a vehicle, but it's a singular charger use. But so that's going to be an issue because, in that scenario, I'm on that side and people are not going to think anything of it because I'm behind the charger.
Yep. So RaRa, that happened to me, except the lady actually stopped my charge. And
Really?
the worst part was it was on a family road trip. We walked 5 minutes to a restaurant after I got the charge started. And I just happened like 10 or 15 minutes into sitting in the restaurant, looked down and it said, your charge has stopped. And I'm like, uh-oh. So of course I run over 5 minutes and then run 5 minutes back. But Gear Guard showed me what happened. And there's a lady up there, and I think it was an EA with the same type of layout that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I was on the back side of it, right? And plugged in, but yeah.
Well, it's interesting. The V3s, I guess the newer edition of the EAs, you have to, it locks the CSCS2 charger arm in place, right? So if you pull out and it's charged, the opposite one locked. And the reason I know that because I tested it. And I said, oh, but I didn't realize this was a newer EA unit compared to some of the majority. So I'm wondering if that's going to have to play a role, because at some point you even have to pay to even release the arm out of the actual holder itself. Whereas the older ones, all you gotta do is push the button and it releases out and then you can plug in. I had to execute my handoff before unlocking it out of the actual unit. So I don't know if that's something that they're switching to, but that one, I had to do that before I can initiate the handoff.
That's interesting. Well, cool. I mean, we're running up on 35 minutes for this one. So and Sapan, I know that you have time constraints. Any closing thoughts on R2? And maybe we'll get back together to talk about R3.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think it needs to be made faster.
I was literally about to say that. Yep.
Amen.
Yeah, it needs. And they're moving production to normal, which is awesome. They're getting, lots of incentives to do that. I don't know if you saw that. I think that was just last night. They're getting a lot of incentives to make it in normal, which is awesome. It's going to save them a lot of money overall. It's going to speed up the timeline. yeah, I'd say start sooner. The sooner the better. If they can really stick to that roadmap of early 2026, I think they'll be flying off the shelf.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the R2 will be very well received in the market. I don't think they're going to be able to sell them fast enough.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who who are diehard Tesla fans, and they just put their deposit in. There's like, this is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want an X. I don't like the shape of the Y. This is what I
Yep.
wanted. So
Yep.
so yeah, it's that in the R3. So many car enthusiasts. Just for like a one quick line on the R3X specifically. So many car enthusiasts I know who don't even care about electric vehicles. Right? They could give two craps about it. Sign me up for the R3X. I've heard so many statements like that because of that, Group B rally spec heritage from
Yep.
the design team of Jeff Hammond and crew. Yeah, so R3X, they need to do R2, R3X as fast as possible.
You left the R3 out just to go to the straight to the X. Just
Yeah,
work your way
R3
back.
for Europe.
Yeah.
R3 for
Straight to
Europe.
X.
Straight to
Yep.
X. So.
Well, I guess the
Yeah.
last thing I'm excited for is I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to see the UI in the R2 and the R3, but it is phenomenal, and it is coming to R1. And I think they told me fall of this year that we may be able to get a taste of that. But I thought that was very refreshing. The artist, the animation on it is extremely impressive. So I'm looking forward to see, because when you're in a cockpit of a vehicle, these are the sensors that you kind of want to you interact with on a regular basis. And I thought that looked very, very clean for someone that's definitely concerned about overkill. Because some people, like, we're techies, right? We love to see all the details on the tire percentages and the roll and the compass. But some people, they just want a simplistic overlay that they can push their buttons to get to the right things quickly. And I think that this UI is going to complement that entirely. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I do like the fact that there's on the R2, there are power points located on the ditch covers, located on the rear for powered accessories. I thought that concept, imagine being able to plug in, attach your bike carrier to the rear and it already have power to charge your electric bike, or to have something on the roof rack with those two contacts. We saw that. And I mean, just imagine that treehouse when it comes out, that the tent. And when they did that in the reveal, it wasn't on the original reveal. So Sapan and I had to come back, right? So when we left, they cleared it after about a good hour of us interacting with the vehicles, and they left the space open just for press, right? And then they told us, hey guys, come back around 4:30. So we went and grabbed some lunch. They gave us some lunch on the waterfront, which is amazing. And we came back and it was staged. And at this point, we couldn't go on the stage this time, but they had the accessories. They relocated the R3X to the front. They had the treehouse tent there. And my mouth was just dropped at that point because I'm like, this is a surprise. And then this is a surprise and a half to see actual accessories in the smallest R3. And we'll talk about that later. But then you had the R2 move to the center, which has the 360 spin on the stage. And I like the setup too, by the way. They set that up like I was in a fashion show in Milan. Right? How you had your runway, you had the orchestra seats sideways, you had a mezzanine, and there was not a bad seat to experience the vehicle. So I thought they did extremely well with that. Since we're talking about the reveal, I thought that was amazing. As you saw on the video, how they introduced the vehicles and they came straight out to you. I mean, it was just a very, I guess, immersive experience physically being there. Kudos to Rivian; they did an amazing job. I just wanted to point at those components out as well about R2.
That's awesome. I think my final point is again along the lines of something you were saying, Sapan. I've already got two friends that have, for the almost 3 years before we took delivery of our R1, had to hear me. One in particular had to hear me every day, Monday through Friday, and then on drill weekends, talk about this dang truck. Hear me talk about the YouTube channel and talking with you guys, or getting calls from Tony telling us to take the contraband shirts off the internet. all of these things, and then from that to then she sends me a text message with a screenshot that she reserved an R2, and then another buddy at the guard base where I worked before I retired, another buddy there, he did the same thing. He saw my R1T, hasn't driven it yet, but he saw it and he was like, dang it. And then he heard about R2. I think it slipped my mind that R2 was coming out, or maybe I mentioned it, but he hadn't seen it obviously until the reveal. And then, immediately he sends me a screenshot that he's reserved one. So, I mean, like, I think they've got a home run with the R2, the fact that they're getting in, people that, liked the R1T and the R1S as they were, but didn't want to shell out the money. And I totally get it, for that vehicle, but they've built a vehicle that gets them, it's I'd say it's 3/4 the size of an R1S, but I feel like they're not getting 3/4 of a product. I think they're getting way more, they're getting a lot of value for the money. And I'm super pumped to see them in an R2 when the time comes.
I want those lock and unlock buttons.
I know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
man.
Just a little bit of hard buttons. just a touch.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and that's the part that's crazy is like, I hate buttons, but I love that layout. Like it makes sense because it's such a natural button placement right on the door handle.
Very ergonomic.
Yeah.
Super ergonomic. It just, it's fantastic.
And it has a heat pump.
I don't know about that.
Heat pump.
I believe it.
2 glove boxes. Like,
the heat
Dude,
pump, I'm still not sold on the heat pump. I'm still not sold.
I think it's going.
Oh, Jimmy.
I don't know, man.
No, and not from any standpoint. Yes, will it be better? Sure, but I think just because Tesla does it doesn't mean that Rivian needs to do it. And I think it's one of those things.
It's more efficient.
Hold on,
that's because Jimmy lives in Florida.
But it's one of those things that Tesla saw fail in extreme cold climates. Still, I don't think like I'm getting on my soapbox here, and I apologize. And this will be the last thing I say. Yeah, I'll leave it alone.
So I have 2 things real quick, and then we can absolutely put a bow on this one. But number 1, talking about reservations. So all 4 of us here have reservations. RJ posted on socials that within a day or less than a day, something like that, there was 68,000 reservations for R2, and I don't have a current number. However, I was told that it is now well north of that. So take from that what you will. The last thing from a car enthusiast person, the 3-motor variant of the R2 is going to absolutely rip. RJ said 0 to 60 in well under 3 seconds. So that I want to drive one.
I want the R3X version of that. I will replace the Alpha with that.
What?
No.
Yeah, he said it. He said it.
You heard it here.
I would.
You heard it here.
I totally would, because that
He
thing's
said it.
gonna rip. It's
I'm
small.
a witness. He said it.
It's small. It's gonna have a crap ton of power, and it's gonna be rally spec. I mean, come on. What more do you want?
All right, we're gonna have to dig into that one later because anyway, all right.
It's a good teaser.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Well,
awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much, and it's great seeing both of you.
Likewise, man. To the next one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Talk soon.
All right. Take care, fellas.
Bye.
All right.